Hi, my name is Greg. I'm the product manager of IK Retargeting in Unreal. This video is an overview of tips and tricks that can fit into the previous videos in the series. If you're confused, this is a video part of a course path where I go over how to retarget bipedal characters inside UE and UEFN. Note that some of the following features have not been brought over to UEFN. However, this video will be updated for any release that has changes for retargeting. Now let's dive in.
IK rigs and IK retargeters are shareable across similar skeleton hierarchies. So here I am in Unreal Engine 5, and I am in my IK rig editor, and I have my IK mannequin open. This feature that I'm showing will also work not only in Unreal Engine, but also UEFN. So if you have any of the template IK rigs, including the IKFM mannequin, and there is a skeleton mesh that you have that is similar to the FM mannequin hierarchy, you should be also able to follow along where I have the editor open, and if I switch to, say, my Quinn character, you'll see that my IK rig is retrofitted towards the Quinn character. Now, I might have to hit reset so that way I'm ensure that I have the correct pose, which is the Quinn's incoming pose. And we could see that my IK rig is working just fine. I can pull around. I still have all of my same settings, and we could see that I still am able to get a pose, actually the same pose as mannequin. So if I were to go ahead and leave this and say I went to Echo, which has a completely different skeleton, by the way, but shares very similar names. And we can see that it's a different skeleton because there is no IK bones on Echo, which are these retarget chains here that we can see. And we can still see that as I'm moving this around, this is still affecting Echo, which is great. I can hit reset to ensure that I'm getting the right pose and back to what Echo is stand. And this also works across different proportion characters that are sharing the same skeleton. So here I have a set of characters that are different proportioned. That's in my content examples in Unreal. And I've made this IK rig towards this medium size male body character. And if I were to go in and switch to my large male, you'll see that my pose is a little off. So if I hit reset, I'll go back to my initial pose of the large character. And if I were to go down to the small male character, I hit reset again, and we can see that the IK rig still works and is retrofitted towards those proportions, which is great. So how does this play out within Retargeter? Well, within Retargeter, I can say I set the source IK rig as the same as this character, and the target IK rig for the mannequin, I can say go to Echo and play any of these animations, and we get the retargets across. If I were to change to a different proportion, we can see that it does affect the animation because the animation is being fed in. Then we're looking at the source skeletal meshes pose and retargeting that across. Medium. If I change it to a medium, you can see I get a completely different workflow. If I switch to Quinn, get something different as well. So there's all sorts of different things that I can try out and ensure that I get the correct proportions. Something else I wanted to point out in regards to retargeting animations from different proportions, especially if you have a similar skeleton, is the fact that you want to take a look at your translation retarget settings and the retarget source property on your animation assets. So this is going to require going into the source skeletal mesh, which I have open on here. Or if you don't want to do it this way, you can also do it within this skeleton. So within here, I've expanded this hierarchy list so that way I can see it all right here. And under this gear icon, I want to open up my show retargeting options. And here I have a bunch of different retargeting options that I have per bone, but I'm going to just filter these so that way I can access the stuff that I know that I want. So I'm going to say, show me only the weighted bones. So those are the ones that are going to control how the mesh is deforming. And I'm going to go into here and say hide sockets because I don't want to look at any sockets. I just want to look at the weighted bones that will affect the final mesh of my character. So right now, the translation retargeting settings are set to skeleton. So basically what happens is we get the animation and then we play it on the skeletal mesh. And the skeletal mesh is the thing that houses the proportions of the character, so i.e. the translational links between each of the bones. And then what happens in retargeter is we look at that as the final pose, so that way we retarget from it. So any edits that we want to do proportionally that are on the same skeleton, we would want to edit the translation retargeting settings. So there's a couple of options here. This setup here is exactly what we want, but just to kind of go over it, we have animation, which is basically just taking the translation data from the animation asset. Skeleton, which is just using the translational data from the skeleton, so no translation animation for this bone or any of these bones will be coming across from the animation asset. Animation scaled, which is it uses the animation, the translation from the animation, but the scale length is by the skeleton's proportion. Relative, which basically treats the translation from the animation asset as a additive animation, and then orient scale, which would just orient scale the translation animation. So for this, so just to kind of show why this is important, let's say I were to go into here and set all of these to animation. So I can right click and say set recursively to animation and watch how that affects my retargeted animation here. You'll see that my elbow shrunk in because even though I'm using the large body character, the animation that I'm using is actually from the medium character, so which affects how my proportions are going to be changed here. If I were to reset those back to skeleton, we'll get a better and more desired result as the shoulders are a bit more broader and the elbows are coming down, so we get it to the proper proportion. So that's kind of the importance of translation retargeting there. For animation assets, while we do know those translation settings, and that's great, we don't quite know what the retarget source is from. Meaning we don't know what the source proportions are actually the animation is actually using. And that's super useful to note, so that way we can properly proportion not only from the skeleton or the skeletal mesh that is, but from the incoming animation as well. So here we will use the retarget source asset. This requires additional setup, but this is super handy because we can just point it to a specific skeletal mesh. And by the way, these are available over on UEFN as well. So in this case, I know I'm targeting the medium character. So let me go ahead and say male base. And we can see that the hips are actually down now, and I can actually maintain some better hip length between that and the feet and the ground. So if I were to clear this again, we can see that it rose up, which is not ideal. So if you are retargeting with multiple skeletal meshes that share the same skeleton or have a similar skeleton as the source IK rig, you want to make sure that your retarget source asset is set on your animation, and also your source skeleton has proper translational retargeted settings. Yeah, that's just a nice, easy tip and trick. Another thing I would like to highlight is our duplicate and retarget window. So let's say, for example, instead of having to play all of the animations in your retarget editor and select them one by one and go and export, and then you have to do the operation again and again and again, you don't actually have to use the retarget editor. You can, if you want to, go into your content browser and select any number of animation assets. In this case, I'm going to select these two animation blueprints. And if we were to right click, retarget animation assets, duplicate and retarget animation assets slash blueprints, I will get a little window that pops up and I can specify an IK retargeter. So in this case, I want this to actually retarget to my starfish character. And I can add a prefix. So let's say like RTG underscore. I can do a search and replace. I'm going to change the folder to, no, maybe I'll leave it there. And I want to make sure I have remap reference assets on, especially since I'm retargeting animation blueprints. So I can go ahead and say retarget. And what that's going to do is it's going to create several different animation assets because it's retargeting actually the animations that were referenced in my anograph. So you'll see that it's referencing this one and it's referencing this one, and it's going to put in within the blend poses by int. Now, this also works for animations. This works on different types of animation assets. So go ahead and try it out. This is currently only available within UE. However, it will be available within UEFN soon, especially if you want to retarget multiple animation sequences in your content browser. The next thing I'd like to cover is something that we're calling speed planting. So you might have seen this in the previous videos, or you might have seen this in some of our other like documentation or etc. Where if I select my IK chains, you'll see, and if you recall, with our retarget phases, root, FK, and IK, there's a section in our chain settings called speed planting. So by default, this is turned off, but if I turn those on, and I were to look at just that section, we see some properties that we can edit. And basically what this does is if I were to play an animation, so let's say the mf run forward, I'll do it from this one. If we are focusing just on the legs or the feet specifically, we'll see that we do have a bit of sliding. We can do all sorts of different edits that we want with the stride warp or the blend to source or any of that sort. But in order to absolutely ensure that we're not getting any sort of feet sliding, and I know it's a little hard with those pointed feet, but if we kind of scrub through, we can see some tiny bits of it here and there. I want to make sure that the feet are more planted, especially as I'm moving super fast. So what I can do is I can open up the animation asset, and this part of the process, by the way, is not available on UEFN. However, speed planting is available for UEFN. So if you wanted to, you could create the curve yourself, whether that's in an outside application or within inside the engine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a UE specific feature called animation modifiers. I'm going to pause so that way we're not distracted. And I'm going to go to Window, Animation Data Modifiers. And the window's just going to be outside my monitor. And I have these two called Motion Extractor Modifiers. But let's erase these so that way you can see exactly what is happening. So if I go to Add Modifier, Motion Extractor Modifier, and I type in the bone name that I want to use. So in this case, I want to make sure that the feet are planted. So I'm going to say ball underscore L. And under the motion type, we're going to get translation speed. So we can create speed curves from these. And I'm going to say X, Y, and Z. So that way I get all axes. And so that'll be that for my ball L. I'm going to add another one. And we're just going to say ball R, translation speed, set that to X, Y, and Z. So now I can apply those modifiers and we get the speed curves. like so. Now, like I was saying, this is only available within this animation data modifiers are only available in UE. But if you wanted to say like eyeball the curve, or you have a different way of inputting the data, you can always create a curve. Say this is foot L speed, and you can author these if you wanted to. You can edit this curve and say if you know for sure, like at this point it's planted, you could just do something simple such as adding a key and just moving that up, or adding a key at this time and basically just creating a simple curve like this in order to handle the speed planting that way. So you can see like, okay, cool. Like I know that's there, and like just fudge it a little bit with the numbers, but basically be able to create that curve yourself if you want to. I'll remove that and close that out, and then once I'm in the retargeter, I can actually input the names of the speed curve that is in my source animation. So on my left leg, I know that I was getting ball L translation speed X, so I can copy selected curve names. So selected that, right click, copy select curve names. Right here, delete and paste. So that should paste that there. For my left leg, for my right leg, I'll do the same thing, but I'll just switch that to R. And now when I play, we'll see that the feet are way more planted, and I can up my threshold if I want to, or even change my unplant stiffness, or change the dampening of when that gets applied, and we can see there's quite a bit of effect there. But yeah, so that's how you can get your feet a bit more planted, and this feature is available in both UE and UEFN. Once again, it's just the curve authoring is a UE specific feature at this moment. The next tip and trick I like to go over is IK retargeting, but at runtime. So right now I am in my content examples project in Unreal Engine 5, and I'm walking around, but we can see that this Quinn animation is being retargeted to my starfish and my Stackobot here. And if I even look through all of my content example maps, you'll see that they're all being runtime retargeted. We even see an example of speed planting and some other stuff that I'll be going over in just a bit. And what this allows us to do is, instead of having to create animation assets constantly for retargeting, we can actually just have them run within our runtime animation system. So let's take a look at those. So I'll escape. And I'm just going to dive into this blueprint that I've created. And this is just a blueprint actor where I've specified my source skeletal mesh being my Quinn character. And I've assigned it this skeletal mesh, this animation asset, and I have two target skeletal meshes that are running a animation blueprint that's just called ABP Stackopot Retargeting, ABP Starfish Retargeting. So let me take a look at those, open this up, and we'll see that I am running a what's called a retarget pose from mesh node. So if you're not familiar with that, basically you can just right click, create retarget pose from mesh. And that's what we have here. And under retarget pose from mesh, if we look at the detailed settings, we can see that we have a couple of options. First option is specifying if we're going to be using the attached parent. So technically speaking, I don't have to use the attached parent component here. I could input a source mesh component as a variable if I wanted to. But in this case, I am using the attached parent, so I can leave that on, and by default, that will be on. The next thing I supply is the IK retargeter asset to use. So in this example here, I am using the mannequin to starfish asset, so I can choose that on this one as well. So if I look up starfish, okay, and that'll be assigned to this retarget pose from mesh node. I can, if I want to, expose this as a pin as well. So if I wanted this to be a variable, I could, in case if I have different retarget assets that I'm using, or I'm changing my source mesh or my target mesh component, etc., etc. Retarget profiles I'll cover in the next part of the video, and copy curves, which will just copy the curves from the source to the target, anything that will be in common. This is by default true, but you can also turn that off. And all we have to do is just connect this to some output pose. And once we have that, that will allow the runtime retarget to happen. So just a little quick tip if you are interested in runtime IK retargeting. This also works with non-runtime entities such as LiveLink. So if you had, say, for example, your LiveLink source going through your source mesh. So instead of playing this animation asset, you have it use an animation blueprint and you connect the LiveLink pose to there. Then you use the attached parent to then have the LiveLink being running on top of this, like on the source. Then on the target, we have the retarget happening and connect that up to the output pose like so. So as long as any incoming animation is on the source and it can be retargeted, and as soon as you put on the output pose, it will play on your level editor. So yeah, just another neat way of using retargeting in Unreal. As a reminder, this is only available within UE, not UEFN, due to anim blueprint exposure. One of the other things I want to cover is retarget profiles. And this is a UE specific feature that is not in UEFN. And specifically, it is around your retarget post from mesh node. So in the previous part of this video, I went over the settings on the details panel of this, but I skipped out on custom retarget profile. So that's what we're going to go over. So here you see a bunch of different like settings that you can apply, but if you want this to be driven via blueprints or via logic, you can go under bind and expose this pin, and you can then assign this as a variable. And basically what a target profile is, it's a collection of edits around your retarget settings. So if I double click on retarget post or mesh, if not, I can just go to the browse and open the mannequin starfish. The retarget pose, the root settings, the global settings, and all of the chain settings as well can be encompassed in a retarget profile. And you can have different retarget profiles based off of your different retargeting scenarios. So for example, you might want blend to source on for your arms and legs for a specific setup or reason. But then when you're going to a different part of your animation system, you might want those to be off. And you can author them directly on the asset, but you actually might just want them off just for this time. You don't necessarily want them off all the time. So that's where retarget profiles come in. So within here, I have a retarget profile variable set up that I can input to there, and that's all under my anim graph. In my event graph, I can go in and say on this retarget profile, I could grab certain aspects of it. So I could say, let me break out this retarget profile, and I get a lot of different things from here. I don't have to do it this way, but another way that I could do it is if I were to right click in the blueprint and say get retarget. And we have a couple of different options. So let's say, for example, I wanted to turn off blend to source on my legs for some reason. Or maybe I wanted to turn off speed planting. Oops, it's the wrong one. I can say get chain settings. Oops. From retarget profile. So I'll connect the retarget profile. And I just have to provide the chain name, which in this case, it's the left leg. And then I can grab the chain settings, which if I wanted to, I could break these even further. So if I break this, you'll see that I have it in my split sections of FK, IK, and speed planting. If I wanted to turn off speed planting, so let's say for this one, I can go to set members. What this will do is it will keep a reference to this, and that will just set the members for this. And if I were to connect this up to an event, right now I'm going to have it on update animation, but I could have it on like initialize or something else. I can select my set members, go under here, and I'll say enable speed planting. And I can just say, hey, that's off. And that is my profile. Now, once I'm done with this, I have to grab my profile. So I'll copy, paste, and say set chain speed plant settings based off of that. And just set it right here and say this is the left leg. And I can do that for any of the settings that are in here. So that's on the IK, so say blend the source or any of these things, or FK, or changing the retarget pose. There's all sorts of different edits that I could do and have it stored in my retarget profile and have it updated across the board. And this actually allows you to even animate retarget profile or retarget settings with retarget profiles. You would have these settings as a variable that you can access via cinematics, like so. And that way it will appear in Sequencer. If you want to see a live application of this, we can actually within our content examples map. If I go ahead and play, we have retarget profiles set for what phases are activated. So this showing root, FK, and IK, and this is all using one asset. This one for retarget poses. So you can see a different retarget pose there versus the one that we have set up as fixed. Or live drive values. So I could lower the hips, raise or lower the hips, maintain different the stride warps or the blendosaurus. We can see a difference between that. Same with this Speluncle. If I can increase the stride or decrease it, and these are all being driven via retarget profiles. You can have all sorts of different ways to drive your logic, especially if you need to maintain ground contact, and then you don't need to maintain ground contact later, and you get a better result that way. So profiles are the way to go for different dynamic runtime retargeting setups. Yep, and that's it for retarget profiles. All of these features and more can be found in our documentation around IK rig and IK retargeting. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing what you create inside Unreal Engine.